Hello.
Just
Hi everybody.
Hello. Just welcome to this talk with Saskia of Ovis, etc. about hand dyeing and sustainable yarns and dyeing. So I'm Helena from John Arbon Textiles.
And I'm Laura from John Arbon Textiles.
If you want to welcome in the chat as well and say hi, that's always great. So we've got somebody in already from Ontario in Canada. So that's always nice. And Austria. Wow. So lots of people from all over. So we're just going to start off with a bit of a chat about Saskia's yarn that we make for her, and then talk about dyeing for a bit. And then towards the end, Saskia has a little video demo of the dyeing.
Yeah, cool.
So yes, this is Saskia, who is one of our lovely customers who we make a commission yarn for. Yeah. So Saskia, do you want to talk to us a little bit about why you decided you wanted to have your own commission yarn? And
yeah, I started dyeing a few years ago, and I immediately found it most important that I'm always been very focused on sock yarn and then the non-superwash yarn. In the very beginning, I only had one yarn base that still had a little bit of nylon in it, and then I realized that was my only yarn base that had nylon in it. I said goodbye to it, so now I only have no nylon, non-superwash yarns left, and quite a selection of sock yarns especially, which I find very interesting to come up with solutions to make them suitable sock yarns without the nylon and the chemical process of making it superwash. Up until so far, I got my yarns from different places, mills and wholesalers, and after a few years I thought, well, I want something that I came up with or that is just, yeah, like, so I contacted you. Actually, before that, I collected loads of Dutch fleeces. I went through the whole of Holland in my little car, collected loads of fleeces and brought it to a mill in Belgium. And while I was waiting for that to be ready, I contacted you. So that's kind of how it went. I got impatient and I really wanted my own yarn, and I contacted you, and I love the fact that it's repeatable, so it can be spun again, and which obviously is not the case with a small batch yarn that I collected myself and had spun. So I'm very happy I virtually knocked on your door.
Well, yeah, we are too. It's a very lovely yarn.
Yeah, it's really nice. So you chose, so this mix, we've got some to hand. It's looking very lovely. It's got Devon close wool, Exmoor blueface and Zwart balls in it. Were those sort of particular fibres that you already knew you liked, or did they have nice qualities that you
No, not necessarily. I asked you for what kind of sheep breed you had that were British, which I found very important, and not from far away. And then I started investigating a little bit, and I found out that all these 3 sheep breeds came from really close by your mill, which I didn't necessarily want to in the beginning, but when I found out that I thought that was actually really nice. That's also why I called it close, because it's the sheep all live close by your mill, and it has the Devon close wool in it, so hence the name. And the Devon close wool and the Exmoor blueface or bluefaced
Exmoor blue face.
Exmoor blue face. Our British sheep, and the Zwartbles is a Dutch sheep breed, but this particular Zwartbles that's in this yarn.
Very popular over here.
Yeah.
Sorry?
They're very popular over here. Lots of
okay, yeah.
have them, but, yes.
But they're from Holland, and I'm originally from Holland, although I live in Germany. I am Dutch. And so I thought it was nice to add just a little bit of my Dutch heritage and color at the same time, because Zwartbles is a zwart means black in Dutch, and bles is the white stripe on its nose. So
blaze,
Yeah.
we call it. So it's very similar.
Yeah.
I don't know where that word
Yes,
came
they have a
from.
little white
It's
stripe
brilliant.
on their nose.
They're
Yeah.
such cute sheep.
Yeah. I saw some of them at the Devon show this year. I went and saw
Oh,
all the different sheep, and they had quite a lot of them, but they are very nice sheep.
they are, and they let you cuddle them.
I didn't cuddle.
Oh, I do when I go.
But yeah, so it's quite a dark base, isn't it? It's got quite a lot of the Zwartbles in it, which is
It's very heathered, I would call it. It's just light enough, I find, to dye. And when you put dye on top, like the color you just showed,
yeah,
you still, it depends on how light the color. This is quite a light color, then you can still see the gray coming through, which I really, really like. But when you put a bit of a darker color on top, it gives it an extra punch, because it already has the gray
it makes it
gray
very
background.
Yeah, that's really nice to see that sort of difference between if you just had a plain white background for your dyeing, the difference that adding that Zwartbles naturally dark brown fibre gives that different ability in your dyeing. That's really
This
cool.
is a white base.
Yeah.
And this is the same color on clothes.
Wow. That's really cool to see the difference.
Yeah.
And same with, not quite.
We have a question in the chat, which is the percentages, and it's 40% Devon close wool, 40% Exmoor blue face, and 20% Zwartbles. So it's not a huge portion of Zwartbles, but it does just make quite a big difference to the tone and the color of it. So
yeah. And I also noticed when
is only 10% Zwartbles, so that's where the sort of difference is between our sock yarn and yours.
Oh yeah, yeah.
10%.
What I also noticed it when I was deciding on the breeds, that all these three breeds have very similar staple lengths and very similar micron. So I thought that would.
Yeah, it means that they will go nicely together, and there's no issues in the sort of the spinning process or anything where they don't want to behave nicely.
Yeah, they're good friends with each other in the spinning process, and I love that you chose them because they're close to the mill, and that's why we choose them, is because they're close to the mill. It's part of our sustainability mind frame of sort of wanting to choose things and champion our British sheep.
We've started, the British Wool Board now has a traceability scheme where you will know exactly which farms that your wool that you buy has come from, and we've started using that in the past year, but it takes quite a long time for the wool we buy to actually get to yarn. So in probably about 2 years' time, most of our yarn will probably have traceability on it. It's just got to filter through the system. They only started up this new scheme last year, so we are one of the first people to try it out. But yeah, so hopefully we will be able to go, yes, it came from these farms near Exeter, farms over there, and that bit near Taunton or somewhere. But yeah, it's nice to know that it is coming from really close by. Yeah, so you chose this base as well. Like you said, it's not superwash and it doesn't have any nylon in it, but it is a sock base. So that's another sort of sustainable option for doing your socks. But we did it with a higher twist setting, yeah, to make sure that it's still quite robust. And obviously where they are quite robust wools anyway, they still quite hard wearing, and
yeah. And I think a lot of people don't know this about non-superwash sock yarn. If you wear them, obviously in your shoes, your socks are gonna rub. So after you wear your freshly knit socks for the first time, and you're not used to non-superwash sock yarn, you might get a bit of a fright when you take your shoes off, because the bottom of your feet, it looks felted, but it's not felted. It's because your sock actually didn't shrink. It's just the fibers that interlock with each other, and it's called matting actually. But it makes exactly at those spots where the friction is, so where you need more sturdiness, it makes your socks more sturdy by itself,
they mold to your feet and your shoes.
Yes, yes.
Like help where you need them. Yeah, that's always good to know.
Yeah. So don't be alarmed when this happens. It's actually the very good quality of natural quality of wool that it does that.
Yeah.
How does having non-superwash yarns affect your dyeing process? Because obviously that is, part of.
I've never dyed on superwash yarns, but I have heard that superwash yarns take dye really, really well or really fast, and the colors come out really bright. That's why a lot of dyers like superwash yarns. And the speckles that loads of people like, that is very well done on superwash yarn, because it immediately takes the dye, so the speckles stay really, really small. And if you would try that on, I mean, it is possible on a non-superwash yarn, but because it takes a little bit before the dye to hit the yarn, your speckles become more little blobs than speckles. And I only dye semi-solids or like heather colors, and not really speckles or variegated yarns, but that's also because of my dye only comes in 9 colors, and they're very I always say Crayola-like colors, very just plain red, blue, green. So if you would speckle with that, if I would want to speckle, that is, it just wouldn't look very interesting or nice, I would find. So that's also a reason that I dye the way I dye.
So you do a lot of blending to get the colors you want.
Yes. Yeah, I blend out, and I'll show that as well in the video that will show, or that people can watch later, a bit about that blending as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of colors. We do obviously our blending in fiber, but we start with a very similar thing, that most of our yarn ranges start with about 10 colors of fiber, and then we blend all of those to get all of our different colors. So it's very similar, that like you see the base colors, you're like, oh well, it's just boring red or boring yellow, but then we mix them in all the different ways to get, like some of our ranges have like 20 colors, or Knit by Numbers has 120 colors. But, so it's the similar thing of like, you don't need very many base colors to work with if you're blending them in that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So someone just asked, and I was about to ask as well, so what sort of dye do you use? And I suppose I was wondering, how do you choose your colors, and how do you make those decisions of what you're going to blend?
Yeah, actually my dye is a very big part of why I call my way of dyeing sustainable dyeing. My dye is greener shades, acid dyes, and it's the only acid dye that is GOTS certified. So it doesn't contain any heavy metals, and it's completely environmentally friendly. Acid dyes as well have the how do you say that in English? I'm sorry. The benefits that when you have your dye, and I'll explain a bit how acid dye works. Acid dye sticks to yarn with a combination of acids and heat and water, obviously. And acid dye has the benefits compared to, for example, natural dyeing, which people always think that it probably must be the most environmentally friendly thing there is. But it takes a very long time with generally with natural dyes to get into the yarn, and so a lot of heat, a lot of time, while acid dye, once it reaches a certain temperature, it's in the yarn and it's done and it's finished, and you can turn off your heat. And so I am convinced this is, and I very consciously chose this method and this dye brand, that this is, I think, the most environmentally friendly way of dyeing with, you can reuse your water as well, which I do, because with acid dyeing you use up all your dye. So after your dye is in the yarn, you're left with clear water, which you can dye another batch in, which I try to do as much as possible. So I also when I have to dye several colors, for example, in this case, let's just take 4. In this case, I would start with the light color, dye this one first, and I'm definitely left with a clear dye bath or clear water, and then dye this one afterwards. And same with this, I'll dye this one first and dye this one in the same water after. And I can use the same water several times.
Yeah, that's really interesting that there's quite a lot of factors, isn't there, in making something sustainable. I think a lot of people would assume a sustainable dye would be a plant dye.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sustainable option, but there's a lot of different factors. So yeah, the fact that you're able to use the same water and not heat it up as much or for as long, it is actually a really important factor in your dyeing process.
Yeah, that's always good. We could have a little bit of a close-up of some of those colours, because we have some of your yarns on our website as part of this weekend's special events. So yeah, we have a few of them, which we've got, like the ones that you were just showing. These were the sort of the bluey, greeny.
I'll show them as well.
Yeah. That's sage and sea.
Yeah, those two.
Lovely.
And yeah, this is a really beautiful sort of rich teal, and then this one you can really see the sort of like the grey bits in the yarn through, because it's such a lighter colour. So yeah, that's we have there. And then we've got, these were the pinkier ones that you were just holding up. So that one is plum is the darker one and clay is the lighter one, and again it's got like a nice rich sort of burgundy red kind of colour, and then the sort of the muted pinky one that you can see all of the dark in it.
It's quite hard on a computer screen. The colours don't always come across exactly the same. So
we will do also on the website. There are a few close-ups, but again through your computer screen, hard to see, but they're done with a nice white background. And then this one, toffee, which is a really nice sort of yellowy brown colour. Yeah. So
I do actually have some pictures which I could share my screen and show some pictures if you want. Let me see.
Yes, we're all very excited when this box of yarn turned up at the mill. They always get very excited when stuff that we've made comes back all dyed, because it's different colors to what we normally see.
Oh wow, that looks great.
So people can
That's
see
the toffee you have. You have
those.
sea, sage. That is clay and plum.
And the one on the far side is the natural one over there.
It actually isn't. It's just a one of a kind that I. But it's a very, very pale beige.
Yeah. So yes, there's some really lovely colours, and someone says they've already ordered some toffee. So
there you go.
Glad you like that colour too.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to steal all of it now.
Yeah.
But yes, they are all very lovely colours. So how do you get to these? Is there like a lot of different colours that go into making toffee? Like
toffee contains 4 different colors. Yeah, so none of the colors are just straight out of the pot, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So toffee is a blend. I hope I'm saying it right. Yeah, I'm almost sure. It's a blend of yellow, orange, blue, and purple, actually. And it's maybe nice to know that how toffee came to be. I saw somebody walking on the streets and they had a coat on, and I really liked the color of the coat, so I kind of locked it in my brain and I tried to recreate the color. So that's how toffee came to be.
Always nice to know how you come up with these things. And someone actually said in the chat, it said, do you have a particular inspiration for your color ranges, or is it just, you know, you saw a nice coat on the street?
Well, to be honest, most of the time it is like that. It can be a curtain or a pillowcase in a shop, or I also love, I don't love buying fast fashion, but I love browsing websites to see, you know, what the current colors are of the season, and like fashion shows and things like that. And so it's mainly fashion, because I really like my colors to be wearable. And but a lot of, yes, as well, if I see somebody with a top in a certain color that I like, I try to recreate it. Well, toffee was a coat, and plum was actually a top that I saw on somebody. And then I kept, I mean, when a color is in fashion, so to speak, you keep seeing it, and when it just caught your eye, you keep. So plum, I just kept seeing all around me, and then I just had to dye it.
Yeah.
And
do you have to sort of create a range? So you might find a few colors that you've found inspiration from, and then you have to make them work with other colors. How do you sort of create that cohesive set of colors?
I have the feeling it almost just happens by itself, because the way apparently the colors I like sort of go well together. I guess, I don't know. But I love also making color combinations. I'm really into making mini skein sets, creating mini skein sets, and combining colors for that. But yeah, that's actually probably my greatest joy, making the color combinations. And I just, like, even now you can't see, but I have yarn laying on the table, but even just sitting here and they just turned out, and
Yeah.
and these
make a nice combo
together, I thought, oh well, they look nice.
Yeah.
It's just yeah.
I can easily imagine these making beautiful Fair Isle patterns.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah.
We had a couple of questions. One of them are these permanent colors for your range, or do you change them?
All my colors are permanent, but I have a lot now at the moment. I'm at 50 plus colors at maybe probably more. I mean, not particularly on clothes, but in general. I mean, just colorways that I dye, and I do have to narrow it down. So I actually just realized that I kind of have to maybe start creating how do you call that?
Category, yes.
Yeah.
We also had another question, which was, can this yarn be used for embroidery, specifically crewel work? So
yeah, sure.
That was for Beverly.
Really nice. Really quite like look quite I don't know, not traditional, but have a really lovely, slightly aged look in embroidery. That's a really nice idea.
Yeah, it has a bit of a maybe you can actually explain that, because I'm not sure which of the breeds or all three of the breeds where the halo comes from. It has
I don't know. I think again, it's probably where they're all they're all quite hardy breeds, so they're all going to have a little bit of a halo, but it probably is, while they all are quite similar, there are some of them might be in there a little bit softer, like the Exmoor Blueface is probably, it has Blueface Leicester in there, so there's probably some sort of softer bits in there, so it might be that that's what helps it to bloom the most in this one. But yeah, it does just have a very, again, I'm not sure if you can see that well, but it has a little subtle halo. You can just see it sort of glowing on the edge.
I really like that.
It's not got too much of a halo to be good for embroidery, but it does have some. So it's not a super smooth yarn.
Yeah, I think it's little bits of all three.
Yeah, and again, it's because it's proper woolly wool, so it's always going to be a little bit fuzzy. Does anybody else have any other questions that they wanted to ask at the moment, or otherwise we might try and do the video demo?
Very excited. I've never seen dyeing, so this is very cool.
That we do get to do here.
And so it's quite a the reason we can't sort of show it live is sort of too complicated, isn't it, Saskia? Maybe you could just explain that a little bit.
Well, it's not so much complicated. It's just it just takes very, very, very long. And from putting the yarn in the pots to it being finished is about, in my case, 4 hours. And it's just a pot with steaming. That's what you look at. So it's that part is not very interesting. So I try to film all the interesting bits for you, and you can basically in a shorter amount of time have a good idea of how I dye. Not everybody does it the same, I realize, but this is how I dye my yarn.
Thank you.
We have one question we just do very quickly. It's like, did you start a sustainable dyeing on purpose, or was it something spontaneous?
No, very, very much on purpose. Back when I started dyeing, there weren't, again, it's these sock yarns. There weren't a lot of, or hardly any sustainable sock yarns to be found. So I kind of wanted, so I started really in the first place as a yarn curator, if you will, and then on top of it, I wanted to dye the yarn. So the bases were there first, that I wanted to collect interesting bases and then I started dyeing it. So yeah, if that makes sense. There was a bit of a ramble, I'm sorry.
Okay, hopefully everyone will have got the video up now, so we can do a little, do you want to do a countdown?
We'll do a little countdown, so hopefully everyone starts at the same time. So if you want to get ready to press play in 3, 2, 1, go. So, yeah.
That's my logo. Yeah, this is the shades that I use. You don't see much on the outside, but I thought it was interesting maybe for people to see what dye powder actually looks like. It's a powder. I never use the powder as I never throw the powder directly in a pot. I make a dye stock. So I mix the powder with water in a certain percentage and use it that way. You'll see that a bit later in the video that it looks like a liquid color that I use, but originally this is where the color comes from.
Is that for like safety reasons, or just to make sure that your colors are mixed properly?
It's just what I prefer, and because you use actually of this powder, in the end you use such tiny amounts. It's very difficult to weigh, because that's what you would have to do. You have to weigh it. So I mix it in water, and then it's already a bit diluted, and it's more practical. This is the citric acid. It's actually a food product. You can
it's the stuff you get on all the sour sweets, isn't it?
As well, and it's used with making jam and stuff like that as well. I actually chose for the video not to use your yarn base close, because it's very gray and it would just be a gray blob. So that's the reason you see a different yarn in the video. It also has a bit of gray in it, but it has a lot of white, so you can better see what's going on. The yarn gets soaked first. So when I put it in the pot, it's already wet, and it takes the dye better and more evenly.
Yeah, this one's a mild base, which is
it has a bit of a this is actually the Dutch yarn that I drove all around Holland to collect, and it has a bit of similarities with clothes, because the gray, the marl that you see, the black is also zwartbles. So I always dye in pots. It's called kettle dyeing, and here this is going to be sage, and I first put in a red because it's like the complementary color of green, which sage essentially is. But the red sort of counteracts and makes it a bit more moody, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then there's a bit of black, because it's a grayish green sage.
Yeah.
So and then the green will come now. So it's green with black to make it a grayish green, and then the reds makes it even a bit more moody. That's correct.
Yeah. And is the water there, is it cold, or is it?
Yes, it is cold. It is, or the same temperature as the water that I soaked the yarn in. For this demo, it's cold because it's not. it's obviously not on the stove now. So and there's no citric acid in it at this stage, because I started with fresh water, and then I always do this. If I use this same pot again, obviously there still will be citric acid in it from the previous dye, but this is just water with dye at the moment, and then the wet yarn goes in.
There was a question saying, what are the other breeds in that yarn other than the Zwartbles?
Oh, a Tesla. So
Oh,
it's tessella and it's zwartbles randomly thrown in. That doesn't sound very respectful, but it creates a fun uneven marl. You can see it later if you see and I can show you the full skein later as well. But yeah, I thought it was nice because it does have some similarities with cloves, but you can, like here, you can see that although there's no heat yet and there's no acid yet, you can see that the dye already starts grabbing onto the yarn, and it already looks sort of greenish, but there's still a lot of dye in the water. This is a second color. This is going to be clay, which is made up out of a reddish, an orangey red, an orange, and green. So I chose these two colors because they're sort of opposite in that way. The green here counteracts for the bright orange and red, and with sage, the red counteracted the green. To make it a bit moody, if you will. For I don't have a better word
good
for it. Yeah.
How many skeins can you fit in your massive saucepan at a time?
Oh, they're not that massive, to be honest. They're a three. It depends on the yarn base as well. Some just are a bit more slick and skinny, and then 4 or maybe even 5 will fit in. But I usually do 3 because in my case, because I try to create solid colors. I want the dye to be even on the yarn, so you also need space for the yarn to swim in the dye.
Yeah. So if you had more skeins, would they be a lighter color?
Yes, that as well. If exactly this recipe, if you put more, yes, absolutely, yeah. Then they would be lighter.
Yeah. So you're nice getting. They've all got space to get the dye on.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. In my case, that's. I mean, if you if I would want to make a variegated, sort of a variegated yarn, you want them a bit more crammed in, so the dye only sticks to certain parts of your skein. But now, in this case, I'm trying to distribute the dye as even as possible over the skeins.
Yeah. It looks like a beautiful spaghetti.
It is. Well, this is on my stovetop with very bad lighting. That's the reason that we're doing this video. I brought the pans outside so you could see that all the dye now went into the yarn. So they look a lot darker in color than they did in the previous little clip.
Yeah.
And
the steam coming off, so they're off the stove.
Yeah, fresh off the stove. Then I always let them cool totally, so I can handle them by hands, because if you would handle hot yarn, you would felt it. Yeah. Then they get a little bath with a bit of soap to balance out the pH again, because they were in a very acid environment.
Yeah.
And soap is
alkaline.
Perfect weather for drying in the sun with a bit of wind.
Yeah, nice sunny day. I say we don't have that now. I don't know if anyone heard, but it poured with rain a minute ago and dealing directly above.
Oh, did it really? It's really, really hot here. We have tropical weather here right now.
We had that yesterday, but today we have rain.
Oh, that looks so lovely.
You can see how it changes in the marl on that.
Yeah.
Lovely. But yeah, so that's the clay, the pale pink, and the
It's
sage.
actually, yeah, I actually chose for this one to do a paler clay, to do only half.
Oh yeah, that is a pale one.
And that's the in comparison with clothes. The sage is exactly the same recipe. The clay is diluted.
Yeah, so if anyone is looking at the Zoom and look at the video, it's the pinky one and the sort of bluey greeny one that we have on the close.
Oh,
we have so that was
the end of the video. Well, that's lovely, really nice.
Yeah, thank you for
really great
showing us that. We have a couple of questions. It's like, how even are the colors from one skein to another if they're used? Do they need to be alternated, like if you're using them in a sweater or a shawl?
Yeah, I would always recommend to alternate. The slightest difference, even yarn coming out of one pot, can, you know, if one skein has, because your heat comes from the bottom, and there the dyeing process goes faster because the heat makes the dye stick to the yarn, and through the whole 3-4 hours of it slowly heating up, I do stir it. But when one skein just maybe has spent a little bit more time on the bottom of the pot, it might just come out a little tiniest bit darker than the rest. And yeah, always alternate skeins if it's not, and that's I think that I would say is wise to do with all hand dyed yarn. Unless it's a commercially dyed yarn, always alternate. It just looks nicer as well. And you can hold 2 skeins together and think they are the exact same. If you start knitting, you might see
we had another question. When do you add the citric acid to?
It also depends on what I'm going for, what color I'm going for. In this case, these 2 colors, I put it in at around halfway. But if I want a more tonal or almost going towards variegated effects, I put it in immediately, and I also heat up the water a little bit and then put the skeins in, and then immediately the dye grabs onto the yarn, and
It's interesting that like adding that at different times makes that big a difference. We also have another question. Do you have any knitted samples to show the stitch definition of the yarn at all? Do you have any to hand?
Yeah, but then I need to go for a little bit. Would that be? I should have been prepared. I should have. It's going to take me a couple of minutes.
Okay, or you could go that. We'll see if there's some more questions that are coming through from other people.
I'm coming right back.
We'll show you some more of the colours again.
We'll film for you. We'll attempt to talk about it.
Yeah, so Laura, you're the person that spins the yarn. So you could also talk about a little bit about the yarn. So these were the 5 colours of the close that we have, which is the toffee, sage, clay, plum, and sea, from Laura's side to my side. But yes, so I spun this one.
It's always exciting for me getting a commissioned spin. So it's something is not our standard. So we have all our own yarns that we make all the time, and all the settings for the machines are absolutely standard, and we know exactly what we're doing. We have formulas for how to make all of our colours, much like Saskia has formulas for her dyes. But then Saskia will send through a request for, I want this particular mix, and some people say, oh, I want to try out some different mixes, and that's my job, is to put those different fibres together for the first time and see how it comes up. I love that, because it's always something brand new. So it's a really fun thing to do for me.
We don't design a new yarn for ourselves very often. It only happens every 2 to 3 years because we have so many already. with doing commission jobs for other customers, yeah, we get to do it a little bit more often, so that is quite nice, and to see what people choose as well, because obviously not everyone has the same choice of what they want. So I know that Saskia, you found it quite funny when we were designing this, because you kept asking for all these hard wearing ones, and I was just like, are you sure you want this? Because quite a lot of our customers, they don't like hard wearing, you know, what they want, scratchy wool, but these are very not scratchy yarn. Comes out lovely, but yeah, it's very difficult to know what different people's expectations are. So
I think the dyeing softens it as well, so it comes out, sort of comes back to us feeling and looking different, which is really nice to see that difference.
The dyed skeins, where we send out yarns that we've made here, and then someone sends us back a dyed version, sometimes they're twice as big because they've just gone poof.
I know, we go, is that ours? Because they've just changed quite a lot in the dyeing process. Right, you've got something to show us.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have a picture of it. That would have been oh my.
Gotta get the light.
There you go.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So it actually has a very good stitch definition for, although this is not particularly cable, but it's good yarn for cables, I find.
Yeah, it's quite high twist. It sort of while it does bloom, it does also still hold itself in shape. So it's,
and this has a bit of lace, and I think it's kind of okay for that as well.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah,
lovely. Thank you for running to get that.
So, we also have a couple more questions, a bit more technical ones. So, do you wear protection when dyeing with this dye?
You only need protection for the powder, and not so much because the powder would be toxic, because it isn't. It's similar to bakers who need protection for the flour. It's the really fine particles. If you expose yourself too often to that, it's just not good, because you breathe it in. So you need protection with loose dye powder. That's actually also why I like using dye stock, because once it's liquid, it's not toxic at all. It's perfectly safe.
When I've tried acid dyeing before, that's always been the advice, is that if you pre-mix from your powders, then you don't have to have the powders around so much. So you can make a liquid, and then it's very safe to use.
So you don't have to be all sort of goggles and mask and gloves.
No, just when I'm making my dye stock, I need protection for the powder. Once it's liquid, it's fine. And I make sure I make a fair amount, so it's
And the citric acid is also quite safe, because it's what they use in like bath bombs and things, you know, like if you
and it's I mean, you could eat it, I use food grade, citric acid, and I mean, if you're brave, you could literally dip your finger in it and eat it.
It's what they put on like sour sweeties. It's like outside coating, so it's quite safe to
it sounds
eat and or touch.
It sounds scary, doesn't it, saying acid, but it's not a scary acid.
No, it's not at all. It's used, citric acid is used in so many things. It's
Sophia also asked, what temperature do you heat the dye pot to?
Oh yeah, that's a very good question, actually. I heat it just below boiling point, so about 90 degrees Celsius, and that's hot enough to then the dye is set, and that's
cool. I'm intrigued. Do you have a special cooker?
No, I don't yet. I'm hoping to eventually have more of a studio, but I dye in my kitchen. It's very not glamorous at all.
Convenient though.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing that you don't have to have a massive setup and a whole extra room in your house to do it. You can
just a big pan in your stove.
A few big pans and you're away. That's cool.
Yeah.
makes it sort of you can see that it's an achievable thing to sort of have people to have a go at as well.
And we're getting towards the end of our hour now.
Yeah.
So if there's anybody who had any other questions or wanted a quick look at any of the yarns again, please just pop that in the chat and we can hopefully answer them. But
it's been really interesting. Thank you, Saskia.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Yeah, the video is there, so if anyone wants to go back and have another look and have a bit more of a view of any of the different bits. I've got one question was, how long do you heat it for?
Until it's at that temperature, and that's it. Then it's
so you start from cold and then you just bring it to the temperature and then stop and take it outside to cool down completely.
Yeah, or just leave it for a night, and then the next morning it's cooled down. And I mean, if I have that time, that's what I usually do. I just let the pot sit, and then the yarn can very slowly get back to get cold again. And
And Sophia is also asking, do you dye in skeins or before spun? So I think what we were seeing was all skeins.
Skeins, yeah.
And there's another question.
How long does it usually take to make a custom base from start, the idea, to finish the yarn in your hands? Wow. So, so when did you first approach us, Saskia, with your idea?
I think it takes like a month or two of back and forwards.
When we
often I don't know if we did with you, but sometimes we will send other yarns that we have that are similar for people to have a go, or send fibre samples. So it's a bit of a backwards and forwards.
I guess a good couple of months, I guess it was. I don't quite remember anymore, to be honest.
And then it takes us, sometimes we just have to sort of find a gap in our schedule.
That's the thing as well, then.
And then takes a couple of weeks for it to get through the system here, and then goes to you have your fun with it, and it comes back to us. So it can be it could be quite a long process. I suppose under a year, but it's a good few months, isn't it? From start to finish. And
it was just, somebody asked if we could just show all the colours again. So those are the ones that we have available. So
that's
sage, sea, clay, plum and toffee. And obviously there are other colours, but you would have to go to Saskia's website or get in touch with Saskia to get any of those other ones. But these are the ones that we have available today on our website.
Oh, one last question, sneak it in. Do you always dye wool or any mixed fibres
such as silk?
Thank you.
I actually, well, the skeins that I just showed, this happens to be alpaca.
Okay.
So that's different. And I have silk as well in my collection, and I have a few yarns which are also sock yarns that contain rami, which is a plant fiber. And it's very strong fiber, so that makes a good nylon alternative.
Cool.
Okay, well,
thank you so much, Saskia.
So thank you for joining us, and thank you everyone for coming along and asking so many good questions.
Really nice.
Had a really nice time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for creating this beautiful yarn for me.
Pleasure.
Right. Bye everyone.
Bye. See you soon.